Nicolas and I are currently in southern France, and for the last few days we have been using the Nikon ZR quite extensively. Obviously mainly for taking some videos, both of wildlife, of the flamingos that you might hear in the background, of other birds, but also filming each other, filming ourselves for YouTube content. And we want to share our first experiences with the camera because we both think it's a bit of polarizing camera. And we are not the experts on video. We want to state this very clear in the beginning. If you want to look for a proper expert opinion, then check out another channel. We thought that our added value that we can give is that we are mainly photographers. So if you are also a photographer and are thinking to go more into the video realms and are wondering if the Nikon ZR could be useful for you or if maybe the usability is a bit limited, then we hope that this video can help you a bit.
So basically, one of the first experiences that I had was when I tried out the camera and the menu system. And then I wanted to shut off the camera and to check whether it was actually switched off. I wanted to look through the viewfinder, which obviously isn't there. And just coming from photo cameras, for me, it has been a thing that was kind of missing. Haven't really gotten used to the fact that it's just not there, basically.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I think for me, it was even when turning it on, I immediately missed it. And it is a video camera, so it might make sense. The thing is just if you shoot a lot with long telephoto lenses and you shoot like us, mostly handheld, nowadays the stabilizer, even in video mode, is so good that you can get away with a lot of handheld shooting. But shooting without a viewfinder handheld is a bit a nightmare. So that's definitely one downside, yeah.
I mean, it helps that you have a super huge monitor. So even like for us, when we did some videos for YouTube, just having it on a tripod, you can still kind of clearly see you and make sure that you're in focus. But just, yeah, when you're filming vultures in flight, it just helps if you have, like, if you can look through the viewfinder because you're just used to the fact that you have a viewfinder otherwise.
Yeah. Another thing that needs a bit getting used to is that the fact that the camera doesn't have many buttons. So basically we have the on-off photo video switch, the power zoom, the record button, and then there is just 1, 2, 3, and in front we have a rec button that can be configured. But that's not a lot somehow. And it's also, I think, the first camera that I have ever used, at least the first Nikon camera, that doesn't have a dedicated menu button. You have this one with the 3 bars that kind of puts you into the I menu, and then from the I menu you can open the menu, which again I think just shows that it's more for video shooters that maybe think a bit or plan a bit more in advance than we do for photography sometimes.
I mean, the addition of these super useful user settings, I mean, they've been before or have been used before in Nikon cameras, but it's just way better now, and you can basically switch between 4 different cases where you can pretty much set every menu setting. So ideally you set up the camera beforehand that you have 4 different shooting options, and then you just switch between those 4.
Yeah.
And then I think you don't need to go into the menu as much as you would have otherwise.
For example, we used one shooting mode for when we film each other with 30 frames per second, one for wildlife in general with 60 frames per second for the highest quality, and then one also for 120 frames per second, where we have the advantage that we can really slow down the footage. You could even set up another one where you have maybe the ISO or the aperture on automatic or something if you want to vlog and be more flexible.
Or also to shoot in RAW.
Yes, exactly. So that's, I think, one strength of the camera. Maybe we can start going there. You have a lot of codecs available.
So talking about codecs, there's obviously a lot that you can choose from. So as before in the Nikon Z8, Z9 and the other ones, you have the NRAW available up to 12-bit. But now you also have a RAW version coming from the RED cameras, which is kind of a mix between the RED RAW and also with some slight tweakments for the Nikon cameras. Then you also have the ProRes RAW, you have the ProRes 422, and then also the H.265, also the H.264. I think that's every codec that you have.
I think it's plenty to choose from. And we ended up shooting most of the time in the H.265 with just using the N-Log because it gives us enough flexibility. And the ProRes files might be a bit easier for the computer to handle and to edit, but they tend to get quite big. And we don't even want to start talking about the NRAW because they are both big and a nightmare to handle, at least for our computers. So again, us being not professional videographers, we chose the H265.
I guess the RAW would offer some more flexibility for us if we make sure that we set up the camera correctly beforehand, make sure the white balance is set, that the exposure is kind of in the right spot. And then for us, the H265 is plenty fine. We can still edit it quite well.
Some space. So in terms of frame rates and resolution, there's of course different options. So for wildlife, if there was not too much movement, we often choose 6K 60 frames per second. Just because with 60 frames per second, we can already slow it down a bit. We have more kind of points in the frame in case we need to stabilize in post. And with 6K, we can just punch in a bit more into the frame if we shoot a longer sequence and we don't want to have the same kind of framing the whole time.
Then if we have some birds in flight, like there might be some in the background right now, we tend to use the 4K 120 just to be able to slow it down even more. Especially when shooting with longer lenses. Even when you use a tripod, you just tend to have some wobblers in there because you're not that stable or
not that smooth.
Basically. Yeah, not that smooth basically. So then slowing it down to basically 4 times slower, it just helps with these kind of movements that you don't want.
There would also be the option, if you are fine with limiting yourself to full HD, you can go up to 240 frames per second, which would then, obviously you need to record this footage somewhere, and the camera actually has 2 card slots. What do you think about this configuration?
Well, I like the first slot, which is a CF Express type. The second one is a micro SD, which, since we also don't like the SD cards, I guess it's kind of obvious that we also don't like the micro SD cards. I mean, since we both mostly record only to one slot anyways, it doesn't really matter because we just use a CF Express card, and usually we have the time to back it up in the evening. So we're kind of on the safe side, but obviously 2 card slots would have the advantage that you're kind of redundant all the way.
Yeah, and we're also not filming BBC documentaries or weddings or something that is really, you should not mess up.
Basically, I think having a super lightweight and small camera also has some compromises coming with it. So I guess that's just one thing, that if we had 2 CF Express card slots, then the camera would have to be a bit bigger.
Yeah, I think in general it's quite interesting because it's the first Nikon cinema camera that they released after they kind of took over or bought the Red company, and we're both very excited what is to come. Maybe there is even a smaller version at some point, but for sure more larger and professional bodies, because this one has some limitations. As we mentioned, if you shoot a lot with long telephoto lenses handheld, it's maybe not the perfect fit. But for the vlogging, it's quite nice. If we just want to film some B-roll and we maybe use a tripod more, or we have just a lens that is light enough. This can even be a 35mm 1.2 lens. It's light enough that you can easily handhold it. And then it's just a really cool camera that is fun to use.
I guess it's also just a really nice teaser of what's possibly to come with next cameras. So as I've said, it's the user settings that I really like, which I would wish for my Z9, for example. There's also the 32-bit float for audio. For the camera straps, I really like the new design, which is way more compact than the usual camera strap luggings. And just in general, I think it shows what's kind of in store for the future.
Yeah. One positive aspect of this camera is also that it's rather inexpensive, especially if you consider how many specs it has. It costs around 2,200, 2,300 euros here in Europe. In the US, we're not 100% sure, but we will put the exact price there. And we will also link the camera down below if you're curious to check it out. And if you have any questions, just drop them in the comments and we will do our best to answer them.